What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 45 of Unfiltered. I'm your host, ChanManV. Got some fun topics for you guys. Not nearly as long as the topic list from last week, all right? So don't be expecting some 3-hour show, 4-hour show this week. I'm going to talk a little bit of StarCraft 2, the Vasacast Invitational, some Naniwa news. Going to talk about the D3, the Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls launch that happened late last night into today. Lots of people have been streaming it. I'm going to talk some League of Legends. Richard's got a lot of news from League of Legends community to talk a little bit about. And Own3D Returning.
Yeah.
Holy shit. I'm sure Steven's got some comments on that.
Steven will be able to put his kids through college now, man. It's good news.
Definitely crazy.
Uh-oh.
And then Q&A at the end. Not. Q&A, guys, at the end, just like always. Post your questions in the Reddit thread. But again, we're going to have the subscribers of the channel kind of have priority, so go into sub mode during that. All you subscribers, be ready with the questions. I don't want to wait, so if we have to wait a bunch, I'm just going to go straight to the Reddit thread. But we will get to some of the Reddit questions. Again, sort by top, so upvote your favorite questions, and we'll get to them. All right, let's introduce the guys. Destiny, Richard Lewis, back from last week. What's up, fellas?
What's up, channel?
Hello, channel man.
Hello. Nice. Okay, well, let's kick things off. Let's start with some StarCraft 2. You guys watch it? You guys watch any of the StarCraft 2 this weekend?
I like a little bit. I don't even know whose games I was watching now. I did read all about Vortex tearing shit up, though.
Yeah. Actually, he's been tearing shit up today, too. Well, the Vasacast Invitational happened this past weekend. And, spoilers, Vortex ended up winning. But overall, the foreigners did really, really well in that tournament. It was Vortex and Major, I believe, that had a really amazing record against Joshi and Stardust, I believe. So lots of good play. Vortex has been playing really great today. I watched him just about an hour ago in WCS, just tearing it up, too. So I think he might be on the verge of being the next top foreigner. I don't know. Maybe challenging at least Scarlet now that Naniwa's gone.
Maybe. Didn't Vortex was like really popular, like wasn't it like 6 months ago, a year ago?
Yeah.
But then
early
he kind
summer.
of just
early summer. Well, he's had a couple.
I mean, hopefully it's consistent this time. But I mean, like Vortex is always. I feel like Vortex is one of those players that was always sitting on the cusp, where we were just like waiting for that breakout performance, but then it like never happened, and then he just kind of faded away-ish. And then
he went through. He went through a few. Oh, go ahead, Steven. I didn't mean it.
I was gonna say hopefully he continues to do well if you're a Vortex fan.
Yeah, he's kind of gone through. I've been following Vortex for a while because he was on Pro Corner, I think once or twice, and he kind of went through that phase where during the Patch Zerg phase where everybody called him a Patch Zerg, just back in the day of Infestor Broodlord, that type of thing. So he went, he had some success during that time. He won some things or finished really high on some dream hacks and that sort of thing. And I was really, I had some high hopes for him, but then it kind of came down. Then he had another surgence, I think, at the beginning of last summer, and same deal. I think he was doing really, really well. And towards the end of WCS, he kind of petered out. Actually, he and his brother both kind of petered out a little bit. So yeah, I hope it's more consistent this year. He always starts out the year really great. It's like he and TLO, I swear, those two guys in the last year or so have always done super well in like January to April, and then just kind of fades a little bit. So I'm excited to see. Been hearing that a lot of players think that Vortex is one of the top foreigners, if not the top foreigners. So I'm excited to see that. We could definitely use some more good foreigners, especially ones.
I first came across Vortex. It was I Am Cologne 2012. And I think he had that run where he finished fourth. It was like MVP won that. Nurchio was second. I can't remember. Was it Violet? No, anyway,
no, it wasn't last year. It was Violet. Violet didn't do anything last year, right? So
no, maybe I don't know. Anyway, my memory's fucked for some reason. Just gonna drink more beer. So yeah, anyway, he had a run then, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, he's arrived now. This is like his advent." We did an interview with him then. He wasn't that like savvy with the whole media thing. Like even my interviews, which are pretty long, it was like 8 minutes. It was like we were really blood out of a stone shit. But I remember everyone back then was like saying this guy's going to go on and do great things, and certainly the potential was there. I think maybe he's struggled a little bit with consistency and form, but then again, hasn't every foreigner? And like, I didn't get to see any of his games this time around. But like, to be honest, he's as good a bet as any to be this fabled best foreigner. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I think they were talking today. I think Paul was saying that I think if he qualifies into the round of 8 today, that would have been 3 straight times he's been in the round of 8, which I don't think anybody else has done in WCS, at least WCS Europe. So that's consistency, definitely consistency. You just need him to start winning. That's the big thing, right? We need we need Vortex and Scarlet to start winning some events, which would be like amazing, I think, for all the foreigner fans out there. But yeah, speaking of like moving on, kind of speaking of Naniwa, I think it was confirmed. Oh, it was definitely confirmed early in the week that Naniwa was indeed dropped from Alliance, and we kind of speculated that last show that he would probably get dropped. But any of you guys surprised about that?
Not really. I mean, look, here's the thing. Like what I said on the last show, and I thought this was hilarious. Everyone was raging at me, like, get to a point, Richard, as if there has to be some sort of throughfare where you go from like things you say and arrive at a conclusion at the end. Like I was just providing a bunch of information, and that was at the time there was a lot of people in the press pit speculating that he'd done it as a publicity stunt. Right. People were saying, look, everyone's going to talk about Naniwa. And indeed, I was talking to some ESL employees today because they released their infographic about how successful IEM Katowice was. And they said, it was like you look at some of their reporting on their own event, no one gave a fuck. No one gave a solid fuck about actual interesting stuff. But the minute Naniwa forfeited, everyone went ham for talking about that. Like, we're just a bunch of drama whores in esports. So the theory amongst the press, well, it's true. Come on. Like, let's be honest. Whenever anything like worthwhile or like meaningful happens, like it maybe generates like 5 minutes of discussion. Whenever anyone wigs out and causes a big fuck off drama, we talk about it for 3 days.
The Naniwa thing was, the IEM thing was well big enough to occupy our attention. Right? The Naniwa thing was, honestly, it only lasted a few hours during the event itself, and then people kind of like ignored it until after the event. And then we talked about it, right? But yeah, okay.
I know it's a big deal. There's no doubt it was a big deal, and it was a worthy talking point. But at the end of the day, Naniwa going to a tournament he didn't want to play in. It was abundantly clear he didn't want to play in. He was saying he was flirting with retirement, and then finding an excuse to forfeit a game. That really, it's like I said, it wasn't surprising to anybody, I don't think. So why it became such a massive talking point, I don't know. But anyway, so all the press, because, we like to try and sound intelligent, they were all speculating that it was a publicity stunt, that Alliance had put him up to it, and other prescribed theories.
Right.
And of course, this absolutely was not true. The first thing that happened was Naniwa was saying to people like, his friends, whoever he was talking to, that, I think I'm in big trouble on this one. It was clear that
it wasn't planned. It wasn't planned, of course.
I mean, he was sent to the event under the pretext of sponsor pressure anyway. So I don't necessarily feel sorry for the sponsors on this one. It's like, you should know enough about the people that you sponsor to know how they're going to react in certain situations. Right. And obviously they hadn't done their fucking homework. They would have been much better not insisting he went to the event. But anyway, they, I think Alliance were caught between a rock and a hard place. I mean, here's the thing. Historically, I know EG, and this is one of the things that no one talked about, because obviously EG and Alliance, flip side of the same coin. EG have stood by players under sponsor pressure in the past for doing, similar things. I think Idra's obviously walked out of,
online
tournaments and quit games when he's been in advantage. Well, not advantageous.
That's not even close to this.
It's not
even close.
And there's obviously other things, people saying, get cancer, or there was the whole Stefano stuff.
Right.
I'm going to make jokes about having sex with minors. That was okay. I'm going to smuggle a knife through airport security and brag about it. That was okay. So I kind of feel a little bit that there hasn't been any consistency here. And I think Alliance probably wouldn't have kicked him if they felt they could have got anything more out of him. And I just don't think they thought that. I think because he was done and was so clearly done, there was just no point in keeping him on. He was effectively a toxic asset.
Yeah, I kind of want to see what Steven, what do you think about this? I mean, you were pretty much right on as to basically what Naniwa, Naniwa wasn't prepared, obviously, and when he's not prepared, he doesn't give a shit about anything. And your analysis of that last week, I think, was right on. So, what do you think about all this, and maybe Alliance's take on all this and releasing him?
It's a pretty weird situation because Naniwa isn't very comparable to Idra at all. They both have like their kind of their divisive aspects to them. But Idra was kind of kept around, and I mean, even Idra would agree with this. Idra was kind of kept around for his image and his fan base, not so much his tournament results, which were incredibly lackluster for the last, 2/3 of his career.
Yeah.
This is like this might be like a little bit of a too soon thing, but there's a lot of parallels you can draw. Oh man, there's a lot of parallels you can draw between Naniwa and Thorin, kind of, in that both of them are people that you kind of keep around because they do things really, really well, what you want them to do, like what they're actually paid to do, really, really well. Naniwa is undeniably one of the top two foreigners at the moment, right? With Scarlet. I mean, a lot of people would probably go ahead and say Naniwa is the best foreigner in the world. Maybe not at this very moment in time, but like over the past year or 2 years, Naniwa is the best foreigner in the world. And then if you look at Thorin, like the work that Thorin does, no matter if you love him or hate him, and a lot of people that even said they were really mad about his comments acknowledge that Thorin's work is fucking amazing. He knows his shit better than almost anyone. And the amount of work and shit that goes into his articles, like I don't have to say anything good about him. You can go and look at anything, and the work speaks for itself. Very, very, very high quality work. But I guess it's one of those things where you start to find out that it's kind of like I don't know, sometimes in esports it feels like we're arriving at the same conclusion as the rest of the working world, where people are in managing positions and not even like a large part of a company is managing like a store, and you find out that shit that's said on Twitter or Facebook is all of a sudden, coming back to bite you in the ass. And you kind of see the same thing happening with like Naniwa and Thorn, where like even though they're really good at that particular thing they do, if they put off fans in any other kind of way, although to be fair, the way that Naniwa did it was a little bit related to the game itself, although I think it still has more to do with his outside personality and the way he handles things, that stuff like that can come back to affect you even if you are good at what you do. So, I mean, like I said, or what's up?
Well, I mean, I think what Naniwa did was more unprofessional, right? I mean, anything that Thorn's done has never been. I don't think Thorn's ever been unprofessional.
When you say unprofessional, that word is like highly submissive.
Well,
like what do you mean by
like when you're working a gig, which in a way Naniwa is working a gig by playing in this event in a indirect way, right? And I don't think Thorn's ever just not showed up, or left the cast, or left an article half written that he was supposed to finish, anything like that, right? Which is kind of analogous to what
this is I'm about to make an impossible to verify statement, but I'm pretty sure that if Naniwa had been any other person or hadn't had the outspoken negative toxic attitude that he's normally had via Twitter and other places, that if he would have done that thing where he felt the audience, like imagine if it was Hero in Naniwa's position, and after that game, Hero forfeited, and Hero released on the forums, like, my mental state was incredibly off. I felt like the fact that the audience was making noises was something that revealed the strategy I was going to use, and after losing that first game, I was too, rattled emotionally to play the rest of them fine, and rather than not showing good games to my fans, I figured I would just forfeit and step out. I didn't see myself winning anyway. Like, a statement like that from Hero, can you imagine, like, Hero gets kicked from Liquid for, like, could you imagine that happening? I think Naniwa getting kicked from Alliance, that was just the culmination of all of the negative PR and events, and the way that this event happened, like this was not a singular in a vacuum. Oh, Naniwa forfeit matches. This is Naniwa, the person who's consistently BM'd in the past, the person who's been involved in all these things, the person that 6-pro brushed Nesty, that Naniwa who just shit all over his fans on Twitter, shit all over people on Team Liquid, said that he didn't practice. That Naniwa quit games in the middle of a tournament for $100,000. Like, when in that context, like, it makes so much sense that Naniwa would be kicked. It's a bad representation of sponsors. It's no representation of sponsors because he forfeit the next potentially 2 games or 5 games or however many if he would have won that he would have played. So I mean, like there's so much there that made that situation exclusive to Naniwa that made it such that it's not really surprising to me that he got kicked.
I mean, this is classic, though, isn't it? I mean, you've hit the nail on the head there, Stephen. I definitely do not think for a second a much-loved fan favorite having a bad day at the office and having some sort of breakdown and walking out of a game. I think I would even go as far as to say there would be people apologizing, like, making excuses for them, justifying the decision. I think we'd probably be having that fucking tedious debate about soundproof booths again, if it had been someone else. But it wasn't. So, and this is the trouble with the community. It does have this weird kind of propensity for it makes idols out of some people and they're untouchable. Even in the face of some ridiculous behavior, and it makes demons out of other people who, like for me, I've always liked Johan. I've always found him to be honest, interesting, highly talented. You always know where you stand with him. While that in itself can fluctuate randomly, you always know about it. And I much prefer him to some of the fake assholes that esports is populated with. Community says no. Community prefers the fake asshole. So it definitely is. It definitely is part of that. It definitely is a major part of it. That I read the threads about Naniwa. People were calling for his head. Some people were suggesting IEM should ban him from their circuit if he didn't retire. It was. I know people didn't. It was. It was clear there was no place for him in the bulk of the community's eyes after that. Regardless,
I know, but you're insinuating that the community shouldn't have reacted that way. I mean, of course they're going to react that way, right? I mean, they have every right to react that way.
No, here's the thing. I didn't say this last week because me and Total Biscuit would have got really fucking waylaid on a massive cul-de-sac. Right, he earned that spot fair and square.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, okay? There was that hilarious, some guy linked to this quote in StarCraft 2 quote of the day, which was from a December 2013 interview with Naniwa. And it read, "When you have a match in front of you, you have to give it your all, no matter how tired or sick you are. You can complain afterwards, but you should always, as a pro gamer, try your best, no matter what the conditions are." So, okay, right. Clearly not one to adhere to his own words. But, I think he earned that spot fair and square. And I think he's got a right to just walk out of any game he wants at any time, same as any competitor. Is it ideal? No. Is it good for the sponsors? No. But players have done it. Players in real sports have done it. And I think that if you don't feel right in yourself and you don't want to continue competing, what's the alternative? You limp through, you put on a poor showing, you lose, and you get shit on for it anyway, and you waste the time. And you get pressure,
I think you're oversimplifying that a little bit. The problem is that it doesn't even matter if you're there on your own time, and your own dime. Then whatever. But I mean, when you're going there at the expense of your team or at the expense of IEM, I don't know who paid for travel. Did IEM pay for travel?
I'm sure IEM paid for travel.
I mean, right? It doesn't even matter because if you go at the expense of your sponsors, you're kind of ripping them off. Because they just paid for somebody to fly out and play one game and retire. If you go there at the expense of IEM isn't going to pay for a bunch of people to show up and not play, obviously. So, yeah. I mean, you've got the fact that somebody's paying for you to travel, and for you to just go and take a little vacation and not play any games is a little bit...
Okay,
and then on top of that, you've got the thing that if a lot of people were to decide that, like, well, if I earn my spot, fuck it. If 8 people would have decided that, then the tournament is going to fall apart. It's like, fuck, our whole first round is fucked because now a bunch of people have decided, well, they earn their spots, they don't want to play now,
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, and I get that, and that they are very good points. But equally, why do organizations send players anywhere? I've been a player and for a very brief period of time and to a very minimal level of success in a few games, and I've been a manager, and I know that when you go to an event, you're not there to win it necessarily. You're not even necessarily there to do your best. Exposure is a massive factor. That's why you're there, and I would argue that if he just dribbles out against Polt and loses the series in straight games, the sponsors actually generate less exposure. an alliance generate less exposure.
I think we've moved past the idea that all publicity is good publicity. I don't think that holds true in anything anymore. And I think most people in esports, I mean, we've seen it happen with Idra. We any major scandal where a lot of negative publicity has been generated, we saw it happen with Orb on EG. Where people are actually starting to write to sponsors in disappointment. I don't know if I would necessarily. I understand that this is definitely what Naniwa did, generated more publicity for the team than if he would have just fizzled out. I agree with that 100,000,000%. But I think that we've moved past the all publicity is good publicity line of thinking.
Yeah, and I
I
agree. I think we are maturing as an industry, but isn't it interesting that some players and some personalities can get away with certain things and saying certain things and doing certain things, and others can't. We're not necessarily applying the rules in a consistent manner.
Well, I think
Well,
they're applied relatively consistently. It's just hard to see that and accept it. And the consistent part is, as long as you're still worth more as an asset than you are as a liability, they'll continue to pay you. For some people who are major assets, that means that they can obviously get away with a lot more stuff, right? For instance, Idra or Stefano got away with a ton of shit on EG because Alex Garfield is a hypocritical, spineless fucking douchebag, right? He can make all those statements with Orb and say, "Oh, I would never, ever, 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 anytime anybody says nigger, I tell him to stop, even if it's a fellow man of the black race. I tell him, please don't say that around me, dear God." And then he tips his fedora to him. But when like Stefano is joking about fucking 14-year-old chicks on stream, he's like, "Oh well, we told him not to play for a month." You know, like he just doesn't really give a fuck, right? But the thing is,
did he have a degree
the real
in
reason?
pedophile studies as well?
His degree in.
I know he had a degree in black studies, so
his degree in fucking public relations to the fucking esports community. But the difference there is, so like if you read past the bullshit of what Alex says, the difference is Orb was not an asset at all to EG, so Orb can't get away with anything. So the second that Orb becomes even a minor liability to EG, he has to be dumped because he's not an asset to the team. Whereas somebody like Stefano or Idra are major assets to the team, and it takes a lot for them to tip that liability versus asset scale, right? And once Idra had fizzled out so much that Idra made that statement saying, "I get paid to treat you all like fucks," then it's like at that point, like he had done so much for the team negatively, but he'd also been so positive for the team that it's like that was the tipping where it's like, okay, it's time to dump Idri, you know? Whereas Stefano would still be an asset to EG, so Stefano could still get away with stuff. So a lot of people might look at things in esports and say stuff like, "Oh, well, we're not really consistently applying the, scale, blah, blah, blah." Well, that's because we're looking at it in a really optimistic fashion. We're like, well, everybody should be good all the time. It's not really like that at all. It's more like how much money is a person worth to a team, and then that'll dictate how much shit you can get away with.
Yeah, but I think that's a shame. I think it's a shame that what we're effectively doing and what the community clearly endorses and actually contributes to is a culture where we don't even say this is okay, this isn't okay. We haven't come up with any rules. What we say is that your influence in terms of how good a player you are and how nice you are to the community in general, and how much community dick you're willing to suck is actually the kind of currency you get to spend when you invariably fuck up. So if he's someone like me and you're just an asshole to everybody, we've got no get out of jail cards. When I used the word faggot on Twitter because I didn't understand that it was immediately qualified as hate speech if you did, and I didn't even use it as a noun, I used it as an adjective. But I didn't realize I was going to get the hate I got. But fuck me. No one said, "You know what? I'm pretty sure it's a cultural thing." No one made any excuses for me. I got hung the fuck out to dry. And I know if it was somebody else, that wouldn't have happened. Yeah, and you see it consistently. And I think that's a shame because, community should be about, like, this is what's acceptable and this isn't. And we've got some very clear guidelines about what we'll tolerate, what we'll write to sponsors about, and what we won't.
I mean, that would be possible in a really small community where it's still ruled by the community. But once you start getting money and interest and external interest, especially financial interest involved, I mean, that's pretty much par for the course anywhere in the world. I mean, look at how many American football hand-egg players, get free passes, or NBA players get free passes, with the countless rape charges, with the fucking attempted murder, whatever other crazy fucking bullshit that goes on in the athletic world. These players are such huge assets to their teams that they can overcome rape charges and shit and still be fielded as legitimate players because they're such an asset to their team. And I mean, it would be really nice to have, I guess, like a consistent set of what will we accept, what will we not accept, kind of stuff in a community. But once you start getting like money and finances involved, it's really not in the interest of any major team owner or any major sponsor, no matter how much they like to make themselves look holier than thou. To Alex again, none of them actually care about that much at all. It's more to do with how much of a financial asset is somebody and how much shit can they put out until I can't handle dealing with them anymore,